As we were coming through the studio, I was looking at Andromeda, and I was thinking about, the Andromeda myth is that she's chained waiting for a monster. But this Andromeda looks almost relaxed, and she's taut, but she's leaning back. She's only chained by one hand, and she's not trying to get up. And I was comparing that to your witnesses and your survivors, and thinking that they look much more to me like someone who in that moment is facing a monster. It is seeing something too large and trying to keep their strength together through it. That Andromeda looks as though she's at a different point in the story. Perhaps she knows that the monster is gone, or perhaps she's waiting for it to come. But I was thinking about your witnesses and your survivors and wondering if you think about what they're facing and what kind of a challenge it is to explore and to feel such a strong emotion.
What kind of a challenge? A big one.
Yes.
Very big. Because I will look at the work that I'm doing and say, that's not far enough. I don't know what feeling I'm trying to evoke. I don't want to put any word on it and throw myself off, because the subconscious works very much all the time. And I've learned after all these years to trust it. A lot of years. So I know that I look at work and feel it's not doing enough of whatever it is. What can I do? How can I get more push, more tension, more of whatever something is? And as I say, I used to put a label on it. I want this to appear confused or whatever. You can't do that. It doesn't work, because your subconscious is doing something else, and you've got to go with it.
Can you talk a little bit about scale? Because the larger, when you do something that's all your work is emotional, and it has an emotional quality. And when the viewer confronts something that's life-size, it's different than when they confront something that's 48 or 48 inches or so. Can you just talk to us a little bit about how you choose your scale and what scale you like the most and what that feels like for you?
I don't know what scale I like the most. I know that working very large, as you do, 6 feet, 5 feet, whatever, you cannot be as specific emotionally. You can't say the same things you say in a smaller piece, anywhere from 6 inches up to 30. Can't do it. So that very specific feelings don't work. I like it all to feel universal, but that's a big wish.
Well, the ones that are life-size, they have a human-to-human interaction. So as we look at something that's life-size, we relate to it differently than we relate to something that's smaller as the viewer. And I just find that interesting in your work.
Really?
Yeah.
Explain that to me again.
When I look at a sculpture and it's life-size, my size, and I'm confronted with it, I see it more as on a human scale. So I experience it more on a direct, maybe emotional experience. When I see something smaller, I look at it and it's a human form, but my experience to it is different. And the small ones, they're like little gems to me. They're just, they're beautiful little gems of form and they're emotive and there's tension, which I just find, I find beautiful. And then when I look at them large, they're more on a, I don't know, you don't work 8 feet, you work human scale, a lot of human scale. I do like it. I just wondered what that experience for you is. Why would you start something that's 6 feet or something that's 48? And do you care about the height that we see the pieces at? Out in the field, I saw there was a 48-inch figure and it was low to the ground, and I wondered, was that a choice to put it low, or would you have rather?
I don't think of it that way.
Interesting.
Yeah, that I somehow don't. I look at large pieces as being not a good idea for some reason to make specific, pointed, emotional statements. They have to, because you're stuck with it. It's so big, and every inch of it has to say what it's feeling. I mean, I'll go away and come back and say it's not enough. And it might be something I ought to explore.
No, we can talk more.
Yeah, the small ones, it's easy to make very emotional.
I think we all talk about, as sculptors, don't kill that piece. Don't destroy what you have. And before you were talking about your method of going directly big, a lot of artists will do something that's emotive and wonderful on a small scale, and they'll sap all the life out of it as they go bigger. And it's really that challenge. If you're going to use your study, if you're going to look at the smaller piece as a reference for something bigger, the challenge is to not get so specific and tight, and where you're copying, as you were saying, to somehow stay close to the original emotional intent. And we all have that same challenge in the studio, trying to keep that. We see so much large scale wooden work,
Right.
work that just says nothing. That's and I'm talking figurative work,
Yeah.
that you look at it and you say, why did they do this? Or you go, well, who approved this? So anyhow, it's intriguing to hear you talk about your method, and because it all relates to that desire to keep the emotional content true and real as the work gets to whatever scale.
Well, don't let me mislead you, because I don't just start a larger piece with no intention in terms of where you're going to have the feet and where the arms are, etc., because then you'll never get anywhere, because you're forever dealing with an armature and changing it. So that's why I think only in terms of a shape in space of some kind. And the larger they get, I don't think that much of shape in space with little ones, because their space is so limited. I'm just thinking shape, space. What's it going to be? Well, what's it going to be is new. I mean, it used to be, this has got to be whatever. And of course it didn't. I had to learn the hard way every time. Still do, I guess. The only reason I'm going to be working on small pieces right now is because I've got to get strong. You know, and that's a factor that unfortunately has hit me. But we'll do it. I get a rough idea, unless some of the detail is necessary to the understanding. You know, if eyes have to be shut for some reason, then I know that beforehand, and it'll be a focus. But the metals, I use a piece of wire mesh, with big enough openings for the plaster to go through. And I just pour plaster on it and see what kind of shape comes out. So I have a stack of these pieces of plaster in different shapes. And I'm going to start a new metal, and I haven't quite figured out. I picked out 3 of them. We'll see what happens.
Is this something that you taught yourself to do that if you know anyone else?
No. I had done portraits and relief, like Virginia Woolf, about so big, and so on, in plaster. And I can get quite a lot of detail. And sometimes I don't want that much sometimes, because it's the large forms that count for me. And then the detail is the fun part, in a way. And it's kind of an indulgence.
Well, I'd like to thank you very much, Leonda, for being our guest today, and thank all of you for joining us in this conversation. And I'd like to invite you to join us for little refreshments before you leave Chesterwood. This is just a wonderful place to be at this time of day, so I hope you'll linger a little bit with us.
I would like to thank you. I would like to thank the audience, as well as the director,
Thank you.
because the questions are good.
Well, we learned a lot about your work
Good.
and your response. Absolutely.
I'm
Thank
glad.
you.